Hey there, everybody. Man, is it cold today. Look, I'm shaking. It's so cold. But you know what? It is November. So go out and enjoy it. And it's going to be a beautiful day, too. Look at that. Look at that sky and the leaves. It's a gorgeous day. But you know what this cold reminds me of? Reminds me of warming up by the fire. And it's in the fire that we find Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And no, we're not looking in the book of Daniel. We're looking in additions to the book of Daniel. Remember last week we had the third of three additions. That was Bel and the dragon, where Daniel had to deal with being coerced to worship two of the gods of the Babylonians. And we saw how he dealt with those. Now this particular edition, the first of the other two, and actually it's the first of how they appear in the Apocrypha, is the Song of the Three Young Men. But it also has at the top the Prayer of Azariah. Azariah is the actual Hebrew name of the young man, Abednego. Now, do you remember the name of the three people thrown into the fiery furnace? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Well, the Prayer of Azariah appears first in this little edition, and it's a beautiful, beautiful prayer, basically calling upon God, imploring God to help them, and saying, here's the very end of it, let them know that thou art the Lord, the only God, glorious over the whole world. So basically saying, look, if you pull us out of this mess, people are going to worship you. And that's exactly how this little edition starts. Then there's a couple verses that talk about how hot that fire got. It got so hot, it was burning up all the servants who were throwing stuff into the fire. But an angel had come right in their midst and caused the wind to blow. And so right where the three men were, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, it was nice and moist and cool, and they survived the fire. And the last part of it is a beautiful, beautiful prayer, or not a prayer, but a song, sing-songy, just like a couple of the Psalms that we have, in which the very first part is giving a blessing toward God for what he's doing for them, and the last part is calling upon everybody, everything, everyone to bless the Lord. And that's exactly how each verse starts. Bless the Lord, bless the Lord, bless the Lord, bless the Lord. And then it talks about, hey, who's supposed to do it? All works of the Lord, all rain and dew, winter cold and summer heat, frost and snow. It just goes on and on. Seas and rivers. Beautiful, beautiful song. And this is inserted right in the midst of the third chapter of Daniel in a lot of manuscripts. In our Bibles, it's not there, but it is definitely a later addition to the book of Daniel, as scholars can tell through literary techniques and things like that are used. But a beautiful, beautiful addition. Now, the second one that comes before Bel and the Dragon is, who would have thought that a story about two dirty old guys who want to have sex with someone else's wife is in the Bible? And it's a story of intrigue, and it's a story of lust. It's a story of justice. Yeah, because, well, okay, it's a very, very short story. Again, this is placed in various parts of our different Bibles, whether it's the Greek, the Latin, or the Hebrew Bibles. But most places just have it separately with the other books of the Apocrypha. It starts out by giving the setting. There's a man named Joachim who's very wealthy. He's a Jew. And people like him so much they come to his house, and in fact there's two elders, and elders are the ones who would render justice and would settle lawsuits, things like that. They came to his house every day, and that's where they had other people come to them in order to receive their judgments. Well, these two old dirty guys saw Joachim's wife, and she was just, well, come on. Susanna says she was a real hottie, okay? I'm just telling you like it is, and just beautiful to look at, and they wanted to make out with her. So, but neither one of the two guys told each other what was going on inside of them. And one day they just said, hey, it's time to go to lunch. So they both leave independently, go their separate ways, but then they come back because they're trying to figure out how they can get her. Only each one was doing that separately. When they meet together, and they confessed to each other what was going on in their minds. So they devised a plan. They waited one day until during the heat of the day, while everybody was gone from the household, she wanted to take a bath out into the midst of the garden in order to cool off, but they had hidden in the bushes. And whenever she was all by herself, they came out and said, hey, this is what we want to do. Either you do it or we accuse you of adultery. These guys are pretty wicked. And these are the ones who are judges amongst the people. She said, look, ain't doing it. So she left her fate in the hands of God, saying, God, if you can rescue me from this, fine, but I'm just not doing it. Well, as the story goes, the two men started yelling and screaming, saying, hey, we caught her with another guy who kind of beat us up a little bit, but he ran out the gate before we could stop him. Just a crazy, crazy story. And she was put on trial with these two judges who were accusing her, and others sentenced her to death. Well, an angel of the Lord goes to a certain young man, a young hero. Guess what his name was? Daniel. Of course, that's why it's called an addition to the book of Daniel. And Daniel shows up and says, hey, this woman's been accused unjustly and has been sentenced to death, but you guys never even heard her side of the story. Now, we're still not going to hear it, but I want to talk to those two judges again. So they brought the two judges, the two elders in, and he separated them and asked each one, okay, under which tree did she do her naughty deed with this guy that you're talking about that you couldn't capture? And one said, oh, it was under this kind of tree, and the other one says it was underneath some sort of majestic oak. And he goes, you guys can't even get your story straight. You see, God's judgment is upon them. They are liars, and they deserve to be cut in half with a sword. And they were cut in half with a sword. So in the end, it's a happily ever after. It's a story of maintaining your integrity, maintaining your faith in God. And we have to remember that the book of Daniel, these additions to Daniel, as well as other apocalyptic material, they were all written in very difficult times. A lot of them during the time of the Greek empire being in control, and they just really gave the Jewish people a terrible, terrible time as concerning their faith. So, yeah, just a little bit of interesting stuff that we have in our Bibles. And if you have a Bible that has the Apocrypha in it, read them. They are considered gems in the history of writing, and just put together so succinctly and moves along. It just grabs your attention. You can't stop reading it, and they're both rather short. And they both say to you and to me and to whoever would read them, put your faith and trust in God. He will pull you through, especially in the most difficult of circumstances. Well, the sun is really starting to come up, and I'm still cold out here. I haven't quite warmed up, so I'm going to go find that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and ask them where the fire is. God's blessings be with you this day.